Those of you who have heard this brother before, you know that you're getting ready to hear something dynamic. You know you're getting ready to hear something important. You know you're getting ready to hear something strong. You know you're getting ready to hear something black. And you know you're getting ready to hear something that's going to wake you up if you're asleep and going to keep you up if you're awake. It is my pleasure to introduce the brother who is not only known as, but can live up to his name as the truth terrorist. If you're afraid of the truth, when you leave here, you'll be terrorized. You'll be terrorized and you'll be terrified. But if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. Brothers and sisters, our brother, Minister Khallid Muhammad. I'm sorry, it wasn't ready.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We forever thank Almighty God for coming as it was written and prophesied that He would come to seek and to save that which was lost. And we can find no other people fitting the description of the lost brother, the lost sister, or the lost sheep, except we, the 50 million or more, mentally and spiritually dead, black men and black women here in the hells of North America. And so we thank Him for coming in the person of Master Farad Muhammad and raising up in our midst a divine leader, a divine teacher, and a divine guide in the person of His messenger and His Messiah to the black man and black woman here in the hells of North America, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank the two of them for the man who is my teacher and my mentor, and the man who is responsible for my spiritual rites of passage. I speak of none other than the premier leader, not only here in the hells of North America, but throughout the world, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you here at D&J Book Distributors in Queens, and to Brother Mark, and to his queen, and to others who are responsible for this forum. I greet you with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Hotep. Shalom. Share Lafia Ni. And free the land and black laws for all black people. Again, it is my honor to be here and to speak to you on such a timely topic during this period when the birth of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is observed by many and celebrated by many. The subject that you have given me, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, human rights and civil rights, the challenge of the 21st century, is quite a challenging subject. Of all our studies, of course, history is best qualified and most attractive to reward our research. If we know what happened yesterday, we can intelligently discuss today, because today is built on yesterday, and tomorrow is built on today. And we should be intelligent enough that if we know what happened yesterday, that we are not likely to let the same thing go down again today. Our unity in sisterhood, brotherhood, and struggle is profound, principled, and forever. We choose the revolution of our people and the liberation of our people as our life's goal, and struggle as the method to achieve it. Our struggle is constantly and continuously against the oppressor and against all in us, which is in contradiction to our values and the choice we've made. We choose the liberation of our people, and our choice is conscious, full, and free. And we accept all risk and welcome all rewards it might bring. We have nothing better and more revolutionary and rewarding to do with our lives than to struggle. Struggle to bring into being a new world, a world in which we, our children, and our families can breathe and create and stand and walk in a warmer sun. This is the Kawaida Kiapo. And I want to begin with a note from Langston Hughes, since at this time of the year there's so much talk about the dream and the dreamer. Langston Hughes gives us this as it was made popular through Lorraine Hansberry in A Raisin in the Sun. And it begins, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Brothers and sisters, in a laboratory, no experiment is a failure. Even if the results of that experiment only proves that it can't be done that way, that experiment is not a failure. The experiment of the life and legacy of the man that we know to be Martin Luther King Jr., the experiment of that life was not a failure. It was not a failure. It serves us well today. Because even if it does nothing else, it tells us that it can't work that way. And when you find out in an experiment that it can't work that way, then the results advances your study, advances your research, and it should put you on firm footing toward real resolution and the best results that you might hope for. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., here 30 years ago, and as he walked in Selma, Alabama, and worked in Selma, Alabama, and Birmingham, Alabama, and Montgomery, Alabama, and Chicago, and throughout the hells of North America, as the chairman or as the leader of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, as Dr. King worked 30 years ago for us, it is written in the scriptures, what greater love could a man have or a woman than to lay down their life for their brother, for their sister, for their friend? Dr. King laid down his life for us. And if for no other reason, we must honor him for laying down his life for us, but we must analyze his life. And we, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that it is after one has made the transition, after they have made the transition to what some call death, but what others call to the realm of the ancestors or the Egungun, then a period can be placed behind the testament of that life. And then we can carefully and critically make an analysis of that life. Dr. King laid down his life for us, and Dr. King believed in the moral conscience of the white man. And since we're talking about civil rights and human rights here tonight, I think it's fitting that we begin right there. He believed in the moral conscience of the white man. Well, I'm here tonight at D&J to tell you that the white man ain't got no morals and he ain't got no conscience. Dr. King believed in civil rights. Well, I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too civil and he ain't too right. Malcom believed in human rights. I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too human and he ain't too right. It makes no difference whether it's civil rights or human rights. You must weigh the circumstances surrounding the very origin of the white man into the world to then determine if he's capable of being civil, if he's capable of being human. This we must put on the scale of Ma'at and give it the Ma'atic weigh-in and see if it strikes the Ma'atic balance. And if it does not strike the Ma'atic balance, then we must make sure that we are not victims of history, because it is written that he or she who does not learn the lessons of history is doomed to repeat them. 30 years ago, the prestigious, pristine presidential White House commission set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson, a redneck camel breath hunky from Texas, an outlaw from Texas, a gun-slinging outlaw from Texas. Lyndon Baines Johnson set up the Kerner Commission, and the Kerner Commission determined that America 30 years ago was two Americas, one black and one white, separate and unequal, and that the number one problem in America 30 years ago was white racism. 30 years later, after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Kerner Commission has reconvened and determined that America is still two Americas, one black and one white, separate still, unequal still, and that the number one problem in America today is still white racism. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they questioned Jet Magazine staff, and journalists questioned the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They questioned Sister Coretta Scott King. They questioned his daughter. They questioned his son. They questioned the Reverend Wyatt T. Walker. They questioned former city councilman Hosea Williams, who was one of his right-hand men. They questioned Andy Young, former mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and former ambassador to the United Nations. They questioned them, and they questioned others, and they put the question to them about success or failure. They put the question to them, have we really made progress 30 years after Dr. King? They wanted them to analyze the dream of Dr. King, and they all said that they could see some change here and there, but they all agreed that America had a long, long way to go. Some of them were even specific. 30 years after Dr. King, if we're going to deal with civil rights and human rights, and we're going to weigh it properly, we must understand that affirmative action, which was important to Dr. King, but never has been important to me, because the action has never been affirmative. We don't need affirmative action. We need reparations and freedom and independence, liberation and salvation. But affirmative action was important to Dr. King. 30 years after Dr. King, affirmative action does not even remain a dream anymore. It's a nightmare now. A recalcitrant cold wind blowing through Congress, blowing through the Senate, blowing through the White House, whistling throughout the hells of North America, has now swept affirmative action almost but from the scene today. 30 years after the dream of the dreamer, Section 8 entitlements, quota systems that were supposed to level the playing field after people had been robbed of their names, their language, their religion, their culture, their God, their folkways, their mores, their norms, robbed of the very power of our own being. All of that is being erased today. Such measures that were supposed to be set up to level the playing field. Now you've got devils, you've got so-called Jews, imposter Jews coming up with theories and theorems on a bell curve. Other crackers saying that we are genetically inferior. Other crackers saying that we are stuck at the bottom. Other crackers saying that we are black jelly beans stuck at the bottom of the bag or the jar. Look at it. You break both of my legs, and then you call a race. Break both of my legs, and you stand, somebody working with you, stands at the starter's line, fires the starter's pistol, and you're the only one running. You break the tape, and then you turn around and criticize me because I haven't made it to the finish line yet. I'm dragging along because you've broken both of my damn legs. How could you expect me to finish? The white man breaks our legs and then has a race and then says, well, you really are intellectually inferior to me. You robbed me of my name, my language, my religion, my culture, my God, my folkways, my mores, my norms, and then you turn around and give me a goddamn test? How could you expect me to score like you? 30 years after Dr. King, a Negro sits on the Supreme Court bench named Clarence Thomas, standing always against his people and always for the enemy who put him there, married to a big dinosaur-looking white woman. Looked like he going home to Jurassic Park every time he go home. Nigga have to get on a step ladder just to get some sugar from that big, tall white woman. And I don't know why we do that. Don't know why we do that. Go and get the biggest, ugliest white woman we can find. Clarence Thomas have to hug her on one side and the beast is so big and then run around and hug her on the other side. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., there's a rise in the Ku Klux Klan. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the dream of the dreamer and his civil rights. 30 years after Minister Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik, El-Shabazz, Brother Omar Wale, and his dream of human rights. 30 years thereafter, the white man still considers us 3/5 of a human being. At the Million Man March, we had well over 1 million to 1.5 million, maybe even 2 million, convened by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The first foolishness was talking about separating the messenger from the message, which came out by Messy Jesse. He popularized this madness about separating the messenger from the message. Close to 1.5 million, 2 million. And the crackers say he saw 400,000. Why? It's because the cracker was still counting us as 3/5 of a human being. He got mixed up on them fractions. Got them fractions mixed up. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., a rise in the Ku Klux Klan, a rise in the Aryan Brotherhood, a rise in the American Nazi Party, a rise in the skinheads, a rise in militia groups, a rise in right-wing paramilitary hate organizations and hate groups and night riders and day riders as existed during Reconstruction. 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., the Supreme Court has handed down a ruling in various states across the country. 30 years after Minister Malcolm X, Brother Omar Wale, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, one believing in civil rights, one believing in human rights. 30 years after both of them, Malcolm said we must vote in a solid block, that we must vote in a black solid block. 30 years after Malcolm, the Supreme Court has handed down a decision ruling it unconstitutional for you to have what they call majority, minority voting blocks. And so gerrymandering and remaneuvering. And so now they're taking small black districts, brown districts, and dumping them over into bigger white districts to bust up your black voting block, which lets you know that you can register to vote all the hell you want to, but voting will never get your behind out of this condition. You running around registering to vote. Some of you, you don't have to clap for me. You say, well, he's stepping on some toes now. And I know they got that camera running, and I don't want the camera to catch me applauding because I'm really with these folks and I'm with those folks. Nigga, you should be with the truth. Stand up for the truth. Stop dilly-dallying. Stop pussyfooting. Stop beating around the bush. Tiptoeing through the tulips. Speak the truth regardless of circumstance and stand up on the truth from the cradle to the grave. That's your divine responsibility and duty to our people here, generations yet unborn, and to our ancestors who have gone on. That's your duty, and that's your responsibility. And so the voting blocks being busted up today. Unconstitutional to have a so-called majority, minority voting district. 30 years after Dr. King, the white man is killing us, it appears, like never before. You talk about slavery. You talk about the plantation. You talk about lynching. But when he kills a Yusuf Hawkins, when he kills a Philip Purnell, when he kills an Anthony Baez, when he kills a Brother Aswad, when he kills a Jerry Lee Amy and a Eula May Love, when he pulls the trigger and kills a Johnny Gamage or chokes a Johnny Gamage, or when he kills a Tyrone Lewis in St. Petersburg or Pittsburgh or wherever we are, it's 3 over here, it's 5 over there, it's 10 here, it's 20 there, it's 50 over there. He's lynching us today with a modern kind of lynching, and he's killing us today faster than he killed us on the plantation. You can't hang as many niggas from a tree and put a noose around their neck as you can pulling the trigger with an automatic and a semi-automatic weapon. But you miss 30 years after King and 30 years after Malcolm making a careful, critical, and correct analysis of what's going on. Because some of you still want to hold on. Maybe nobody in here. Maybe that's the ones who didn't come. In fact, let's establish some rules now. If I say anything that you don't like, just say he ain't talking about me. Talking about somebody else. All right? Some of us are crazier today than we were when Malcolm was here, than we were when Martin was here. Some of you got your tikis and your sandals and your boobas and your dashikis and your red and your black and your green and your mud cloth and your kente cloth, and Christmas, you had a damn Christmas tree in your house. You got your afro, you got your dreadlocks, you got your African braids, you got all of that. You crowned and gowned to the ground. But you got a dead tree that the peckerwood sold you in your house with some kente ribbon on it, with a Santa Claus with red, black, and green on. You got a red, black, and green stocking over the fireplace. You have taken this madness and dressed it up and tried to give it an African flavor. Some of you today, 30 years after Malcolm, 30 years after Martin, 30 years after the call for civil rights and human rights, some of you are still quoting the white man's corrupt constitution and his Declaration of Independence and his Bill of his Bill of Rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator by certain unalienable rights, that to these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's look at that. Would you hold this for me, son? This is my son, Farrakhan. Give me a strong black. This book is what color? Black. Black. Is that it? It's all right, you can talk about it. What color is it? Black. This is just plain toilet paper, unused. Plain toilet paper. It's just wet. This is big, it's heavy, and it's black. This is what? It's small, it's light, and it's white. I'm here to tell you tonight from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that all men, all women are not created equal, but we are created equally. So teaches the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. There is nothing equal in the universe. One of your eyes is higher than the other one or lower than the other. One is bigger than the other. One leg is shorter than the other one, long as some of us walk like it. Some of us we know that one of our arms is longer than the other arm. There is nothing equal in the universe, but everything in nature has been created equal. Everything in nature has been created equally, but not equal. Let's look at it. Again, black, big, and heavy. Huh? That's right. Small, light, and white. But when I drop it into a law, look carefully now, look down, don't look up. And this ain't no magic, this ain't no abracadabra. This is not no hocus pocus, no shazam. Watch. They both hit the floor at the same time. Let's look at it another way. This is what? White. Talk back to me. Talk black to me. This is what color? White. This is what? White. All right. Let's look at it. We hold the two of them up. They're not equal, are they? No. One is big, one is small. One is white, one is black. Come on. Huh? Yes, one is heavy, one is light. They're not equal, but they have been created equally. And when you drop them into God's law, we did it at first with black being bigger and heavier and white being smaller and lighter. Now we do it the opposite way. And when we drop them, they both fall into a law and they both hit the floor, what? Same time. At the same time. Let's look at it even further. Freedom is a law of nature. Freedom is a law of nature, and justice is deeply rooted in the universal order of things. And it is the divine intent of the Almighty, all-wise God and Creator that everything live equally under His creation. Let's look at it. The ant and the anteater, the chicken and the chicken hawk. It makes no difference what it is in nature. All have been created equally, but not equal. Everything must have food. You with me? Yes, sir. Water, air, and the proper environmental and atmospheric condition. The ant must have food. The ant must have water. The ant must have air. The ant must have the proper atmospheric and environmental conditions to continue to live. But on the other hand, the anteater must have food. It just turns out that the ant is the food of the anteater. The anteater must have food, must have water, must have air, must have the proper environmental and atmospheric conditions. Let's look at the chicken and the chicken hawk. Both of them must have food. Both must have air. Both must have water and the proper atmospheric and environmental conditions. It just so happens that the chicken is the food of the chicken hawk. Nature is set up with predators and prey. And we have been the prey of the white man for the past 4,000 to 6,000 years of his sojourn here on our planet. The brown man and woman, the red man and woman, the yellow man and woman, all have been the prey of the white man. The white man is our natural enemy. I know nobody teaches that too much anymore. We've gotten sophisticated now. We talk all up in the clouds now. We talk all kinds of proper talk and talk that borderlines that we might be trying to get away, but we also look like we're trying to stay. All at the same time. We're dreaming of a brighter day in America. We got to search for tomorrow in America. I cannot change, and I will not change. And God damn it, don't ask me to change, because I'm not going to. The white man is not a devil, but the white man is the devil. And if the white man is not the devil, he's going to have to do until the real devil gets here. Civil rights and human rights, the challenge of the 21st century. Look at it. If you're going to look at Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, you got to look at them in phases. You got Old Testament Malcolm and New Testament Malcolm. You got Old Testament Martin and New Testament Martin. Old Testament Martin had a soft line. Old Testament Martin had a soft line. New Testament Martin moved toward a harder line. Criticized America, challenged America, called America, stepped out of the realm of Negro affairs, stepped out of the box into the international arena, and started comparing the war in Vietnam with what black people were facing right here in the hells of North America. On the Ho Chi Minh Trail or the Edmund Pettus Bridge, Martin started making a comparison. So that's Old Testament Martin and New Testament Martin. From a softer line to a harder line. And I don't mind being unpopular if I stand on truth. I must say that there's again an Old Testament Malcolm and a New Testament Malcolm. Old Testament Malcolm leaned toward a harder line. New Testament Malcolm moved toward a softer line. Give a damn whether you applaud. Don't give a damn whether you nod your head. Don't give a damn whether you smile. I know they're not going to give you your money back, so you might as well just sit back and relax and deal with it. Let's look at it. Old Testament Malcolm said, a revolution is bloody. A revolution knows no compromise. A revolution uproots and overturns everything that gets in its path. Old Testament Malcolm said, if you knew what a revolution was, why, you wouldn't even use that word. in your vocabulary. Old Testament Malcolm said, if you knew what a revolution was, well, you get back in the alley. That's Old Testament Malcolm. Old Testament Malcolm said, all white folks are the devil. He said, none of them are any good. He said, if you find one that you think is good, kill him first before he turned bad. That's Old Testament Malcolm. Because just as sure as the sun shines, the guy's going to turn bad. I'm telling you, buddy, he's going to turn bad. No, make no mistake about it. The guy can't help it. Gee whiz. Golly gee. If you think anything else, it's far out, buddy. It's far out. Jimininis. Old Testament Malcolm used not only spiritual and political and cultural terminology, he used revolutionary terminology as well. What does this say? Okay. And we read it? Everybody look and say, what does this say? Did it say leave Malcolm alone? Did it say stop criticizing Martin? You really want to know what it said? You don't want to know what it said. You don't want to know what it said, do you? How many want to know what it said? Don't lie, you want to know what it said. How many want to know? Let me see your hand. How many don't want to know what it said? Raise your lying hand. It just says, can you take a 15-minute break? At some point, take a 15-minute break. And we're going to do that, and then we'll reconvene. All right? Is that all right with everybody? He said, that ain't really say that. Everybody all right? We were talking about Old Testament Malcolm and New Testament Malcolm, Old Testament Martin, and New Testament Martin. Martin from a softer line to a hard line. Malcolm from a hard line to a softer line. Not a soft line, but a softer line. New Testament Malcolm went back to Saudi Arabia. Now, he'd already gone in 59. And whatever he saw when he went back the second time, now believe me, he saw it the first time. All right? Okay? All right? Yeah, I got to drop some Ebonics up off in here. All right. I drop a little Ebonics, y'all the folk to know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? You the folk to know. He went to Mecca. This takes nothing away from him. These are lives that were not allowed to be private lives. These were lives that were lived before our eyes. You see, you can make your changes, and a lot of times people don't see your changes. Huh? You get in the shower and change. You sitting on the throne in the toilet and change and come out a new person. Everything came out all right. Some of you go to one Juma prayer, you're a changed person. You go to one Juma prayer and you come back, brother and your wife don't even know you. You're Khallid Abdul, Rahman, Suleiman, Kareem, the Magnificent III. Abdullah. Got an Arabic accent and one Juma prayer. You come back in the door, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And she said, all right, baby. And she, assalamu alaikum, I love you, baby. And she said, well, what's the matter, baby? No, I'm not baby anymore. I'm Khallid Rasul Kareem Rahman. You go on. She said, nigga, I know you. You Willie Bobo. When you go and take 30 minutes of karate. Try to slant your damn eyes in the mirror. Want to eat chop suey and egg foo young all the time. We just wild. Robbed so thoroughly of a knowledge of self until everybody's culture makes an impression on us. The best way to defeat the oppressor's culture and alien culture is to live your own. It's to live your own. That's the best way to defeat it. New Testament Malcolm went back to Saudi Arabia after he had been the first time. And he went in and he came, he wrote postcards back. He sent letters back saying, here I am in Mecca, and it's a sight to behold. Here I am, he said, sleeping on the same mat, eating from the same bowl, drinking from the same cup, with men whose skin is the whitest of white, whose hair is the blondest of blonde, whose eyes are the bluest of blue. This proves that it can work, that integration can work. He was interviewed. He said, I was in Mecca, he said, and I was with men whose skin would be considered white in Mecca. He said, but they had Islam. And he said Islam made them different. Islam didn't allow them to act like racists. And that's what the white man in America needs, Malcolm said. He needs Islam. Well, wait, let me tell you something. I've been to Mecca 8 times. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I came back each time believing that the white man was more the devil after I got back than before I went over there. There are Muslims who don't want you to talk about this. We got to deal with the truth. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. There is no division in Islam. There is no invidious class distinction in Islam. I'll be damned. I was in Mecca at the Mitar, or the airport. The biggest delegation to come to Mecca is represented by the blue, black, purple, black Nigerians and Senegalese from West Africa. West Africa sends the biggest delegation. Some of our brothers and sisters so beautiful, so black, looked like they would spit ink. It's black. Spit black ink. I saw some of them, their greatest dream, even though they might be 70 or 80, some in their 90s, is to just make it to the holy city of Mecca one time in their life before they pass on. Some of them want to die in Mecca. That's their dream their whole life through. I saw elder sisters looking like they were 80 years, 90 years old in the airport. I saw racist white Arabs with their gutra and their matob and all of that they wear. I saw them run through the airport and grab elder Nigerian sisters and Senegalese sisters and grab them and snatch them and just throw them across the airport. And I'd run to their white behinds and grab them and throw them against the damn wall. And couldn't speak Arabic, but I was telling them, that's my great-grandmother that you just, whether I ever met her before, that's my great-grandmother that I left in Africa generations down the line. I saw ghettos in Mecca. Tell me nothing about Mecca. I saw them come out with bread in their robes, in their thobes, and black people be there stuck or stranded there because they just wanted to be somewhere close to what they call the sacred precinct. And I see them arrogantly walk out and throw bread up in the sky and let it hit the ground, and our people eat off the ground. In an oil-rich Saudi Arabia, pumping billions of barrels and billions of dollars. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. Saudi, from a root etymologically, it's a similar root to Aswad, which means black. Arabia. If you're confused on that, read Chancellor Williams. Dr. Chancellor Williams said that all of that area changed from black to brown to white. From black to brown to white. That they drove us from the centers of power. And they set up in Saudi Arabia, as they call it today. They set up in what is called Israel today. They set up in Syria. They set up in Jordan. They set up in Morocco and Algeria, if I didn't say it. They set up in Egypt. They set up in Libya. They set up in all of those areas and drove us from the centers of power. And those areas changed from black to brown to white. You don't want to talk about that. You say, well, what about slavery? Let's talk about slavery in Islam. I haven't seen the slavery, but I'll tell you what I did see. I was in Medina at Masjid al-Nabi, the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. I saw these men with their eyes back in their head. Their temples were recessed into their head, gaunt looking. Looking East African or looking Ethiopian or Somalian or Eritrean, which is all the same. All the same. Until a white man started his game over them. They were rough on the women in the mosque. They were just grabbing women and throwing them all over the place. I didn't mind as long as they were throwing the white women. I wasn't like Malcom. I didn't say nothing about that. But if they put their hand on a sister, I'd grab the hand and check them. So I asked, who are these men? And people say, you don't know who that is? It's a whole group of them. I said, no, who are they? They said, those. They said, those are the eunuchs. My brain locked. I said, what are they, unique? What do they mean? I guess they are unique. They said, a eunuchs, you know what a eunuch is? I say, yeah. They say, yeah, you know, their reproductive, their regenerative organ, their sex organ was cut off by the white Arabs. I got furious. I said, what? They said they bring them over from Africa. And they cut their regenerative and reproductive organs off so that they can watch over their harems and watch over their many women, and they not have to worry about the African brother impregnating one of their women. I had nightmares, dreams about these brothers. For nights, they were very antisocial. They didn't want to deal with anyone. They stayed among themselves. They had this kind of resentment, as I said, for women and for anything outside of their immediate circle. I saw that to the degree that I could see it with my own eyes, because some of you, you asked them crazy questions. I didn't see that far. No, somebody will say, did you really see? That's a fool. And I know we got a question and answer period coming up, so I'm trying to discourage the fools before we even get started. So if you're thinking about asking me that, don't ask me no damn silly question. And anyway, there was nothing to see. They had been castrated. Castrated. Now that's going on today. So when there are rumors about slavery, because you're a Muslim, you might want to hide and say, well, I don't think so, and that's wrong. And it might be wrong, and it might be coming through the wrong channels. But the enemy having another plan for putting it out there. exacerbating tensions and exaggerating stories. But I have reason to believe that it could be true, but I have no proof, and I must be honest, except proof of the eunuchs is proof enough for me. I was in the Sudan, and I was sitting with Brother Sadiq al-Mahdi, with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We were at Sadiq al-Mahdi's home, and out of the clear black or blue, I asked one of my questions. The minister looked at me. I said, Brother Sadiq, do our people here in the Sudan consider themselves Muslim? Or, I didn't say that. Do they consider themselves Arab or African? He never hesitated. He said Arabs. Now he's in the Sudan. He said, we are Arabs. Anyone who speaks the Arabic language is an Arab. I said, brother, that sounds, the minister looked at me. But he didn't stop me though. He let me go on. I said, that sounds like Arab imperialism to me. You mean you're an African and you deny your Africanism? To say that you're an Arab, I could have understood a little bit. If he would have said, we are Muslim, then he would have been dealing with something in a religious or a spiritual realm. But he said, we are Arab. And I hear many arrogant Arabs say, oh, assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillah, we are so happy that you have accepted our religion, Islam. Say it's not your religion. All that I'm covering now deals with Malcolm's dream of human rights. You can't get human rights legislated from The Hague in Netherlands. You can't get human rights legislated from any white European body on the face of the planet Earth. You can't take your case to a world court. Malcolm, we love you for all that you have done, but 30 years later, we must make a careful, critical, and correct analysis.